Pardon being late. Technical problems. Who knows what's going on? P-Man, good morning. Bitcoin, sun's up. Cool morning in Montreal. It's coffee in Moscow time. Indeed. We'll jump right into it. I'm sorry. I have a lot of comments here, but I will certainly try and get to a few of them. But we're going to skip this morning a few of them, even though I love reading them all. Good week to Bitcoin. It is, I'm feeling great. I have been waking up so optimistically about everything. It wasn't the case a couple weeks ago. So things are changing quick. Jeremy, I'd like to see a Mr. Beast reads Stranger in a Strange Land reaction video. Pretty cool. It's better to have pegged to BigMac than pegged to the dollar. We got Big Macs, we got dollars, HODL, T, Washington, usually back and forth between Florida and NYC. I'm just picking random ones here. So counterfeiting is time change. We are dealing with the time change. Oh, there we go. I like to hear this. Salting some beef to dry brine while I drink my coffee. When Big Mac tokens on the blockchain. Maybe we'll talk about that a bit today. I got Big Macs in the thumb. Let me just get this screen. There we go. All right, team. Pardon me about being late. The reason I'm late is still here. My images are not uploading properly the way I had done them. I created my album. I do a shared album thing where I take screenshots and then I add them to an album, and then the album is my notes. So I added everything. Okay. Like, you drop it in, you hit the button on the iCloud, whatever. And then what do I get? Nothing. The album is empty 3 times. It was a disaster. So, and it's still not anyway, I'm not going to bore you with the stupid details of boring shit based on crappy technology. Let me just acknowledge the sunrise is not crappy technology. It works perfectly and has been consistent today. Bitcoin is also not crappy technology and works as predicted. So those things are working. All my Apple stuff, garbage this morning, just absolute garbage, right? Nothing working, but that's okay because the sun is working just fine. And so is planetary orbits and all of the astrophysics that go into it. So that's going great. And all of the engineering with Bitcoin is going great. We're great. We're fine. Everything's great. I'm super optimistic today. So let's have coffee and get even more optimistic. Indeed. Just a couple weeks ago, I was on my way to Amsterdam. And I was even saying, I don't even know if I can go to Amsterdam. I don't know if I have the optimism to think this is going to be a successful trip because of all the craziness that was going on. We had paragliders, and I can't even repeat the words of how disgusting things were happening in the world a few days ago. Indeed, it looked like there was a complete evil psychological envelope that was surrounding planet Earth. And it looked like there was very little escape. But suddenly, things are looking great. And we'll talk about it. Let's talk about why things are looking great. But first, let's take the not great. So now I have to read this off my fucking phone because I can't read my fucking iPad because stupid Apple is shit and won't give me my fucking notes. I can't deal with this. Just so angry. I'm optimistic, but angry about the shittiness of old world tech. All right, so let me read it off my phone like a fucking idiot, even though I have an iPad Pro, like it means anything, that's supposed to be the greatest thing ever invented, and I can't even look at pictures. Fuck. All right, here we go with my phone like a moron. American IQs are dropping. Here's why it might not be a bad thing. So I'm not sure if I actually read this one. This was a user-generated submission. It came out in March. I don't think I read it live. We gotta share it here, right? So American IQs are dropping. No big deal. No big deal, guys. It's not a big deal. It's just IQs. This one's great. This is from National Geographic. I used to have a subscription to National Geographic when I was a kid, right? I used to get the magazine. I used to get the big orange, yellow magazine, but when I was a kid, they actually had a kids magazine, which I read. It was awesome. So I got like a comic book with it. It was great. And the maps, I still have all kinds of maps. But here's what they're saying. New research suggests that the worse your symptoms are after getting the COVID vaccine, the better It means it's working. Okay. Oh, this one's fun. Okay, this is from CBC. You always know if I'm going to say CBC from Canada, it's going to be a real amazing shit nugget, like shiny shit. It's not just normal fake news; it's shiny fake news. So here's what we got: scientists warn Earth warming faster than expected, but here's the kicker. Here's the shine, right? Due to a reduction in ship pollution. Okay. I wanted to know what they meant. What is happening here? So I read it. So here's why they're crying. Apparently, they got the ships to not like emit, like I guess ships have contrails too, like airplanes, like they leave these streaks in the air. That's the picture. It's all these streaks in the air. So apparently, they did something to keep the smoke from going up, and they injected it into the water instead. But they say, no, you can't warm the water. The air was the old way of thinking about it. The water is the worst. So the scientist behind this says, now that I found this out, the 1.5 degree thing is we already blew past it. We made such a mistake this summer, apparently, by not letting the smoke leave the ships and injecting it into the ocean, that's why everyone's going to die within like, they didn't say 6 years, like we heard the other day, that 6 years is now all we have left. These guys are saying it might even be less. It might even be less, guys. So careful. CBC, there you go. This is from CTV, not to be confused with CBC. So Canada has two unbelievably terrible media sources. CBC is world champion. Like if there was a fight for the worst fake news in the world, I think Washington Post would win. New York Times wouldn't be far, but you know, it could be a sneaker that CBC gets through, right? They could be like an upset winner, right? They're not really my number one ranked fake news, but they're in the top 5, and so they're just unbelievable. CTV is a private, even though every media in Canada has to be subsidized because none of it works. So CTV. They don't even produce anything. They just syndicate American shows. It's just absolute garbage. But they have a news network, right? And journalists. And here's what they say. All right. How Indigenous Black Canadians are impacted by plastic production, use, and waste. You might have noticed that white Canadians are not mentioned here. I assume it's because we have a special power that we don't have to be considered for plastic damage, right? It's not our problem. We must have a superpower. It must be part of white privilege. I didn't know. White privilege gives you immunity to plastic everything, okay? So if you're white out there, I'm going to give you medical advice now. I don't normally give you medical advice, right? But I'm going to say, don't worry about plastic unless you're Black or Indigenous, okay? Because it only affects you, according to CTV. It's just for you. It's not for me. I'm fine, right? Now, it leads me to the next comment on Salon, right? They say Hamas and the GOP are both terrorist groups. It's just a matter of degree, right? Well, do they have plastic immunity in common? Maybe. I don't know. They should use the plastic toxicity to their advantage somehow, though. It should be a war measures thing. So now we got a lot of fake news coming from MSNBC today and a few other sources, right? We're getting a little bit inundated with the fake news today. But as I was saying, right, I've been waking up the past few days in a way more optimistic mood about the time frame for hyperbitcoinization and for people realizing that we need to separate money and state, and that we're at that point. I've been talking for a long time about how Bitcoin is not some engineering project and it's not a 40-year time cycle where the whole world switches to Bitcoin. More or less, we got to do it now, right? Evil has risen in a certain context around the world, most of it fueled by the money system we have. We've got brains broken all around us. I mean, almost everybody is just a complete shadow of what they once were. The smartest people I knew from law school are sitting around worrying about January 6th sicko head stuff. It's just on and on and on, right? And it's sad to see, like, the finest minds of my generation that I remembered from when I was young, honestly believe that white supremacists have taken over and are about to run over Washington, D.C. and put everyone in prison. It must be stressful to live like that, right? Imagine the stress of having to stay that amped up because you're just consuming so much fake news, right? And because that's what the fake news has been doing. It's been pumping these people filled with things that are hallucinations that you would have to go out of your way to imagine are there, right? So the hallucinations that I see are now becoming, there's a consequence to hallucinating these things, right? It's not so much that you can stay down this road anymore of hallucinating things that aren't there and just go on with your life. At a certain point, the hallucinations have drawn people down a road that has a dead end, right? And here you can start to see what a bit of the dead end is. Here you have, remember I was talking about that Jen Psaki? You remember Jen Psaki? She's the orange, orange-haired, redheaded girl. She used to be Blinken's, I think, press secretary or some shit. And then she went to Biden before Karine Jean-Pierre, right? And so she was the old one. And then she got a job, of course, at MSNBC, as they always do. And her job at MSNBC is to do these puff piece interviews that are all controlled. So she gets people on, like she did the Hillary Clinton one, right? And then she gets the big election denier, Stacey Abrams, in, right? The Georgia election denier, who's probably right. She was probably robbed. I don't have any proof, right? But when I see Georgia behaving the way it is around Trump, I say, well, what are those Republicans hiding? Because it's a Republican thing now, right? Well, what are they so upset about, right? And it's what I've been saying for a long time. It's not the reason why you're not getting any movement on election reform in America or any of this January 6th stuff is because the Republicans are in on it, not against Trump for their own little fiefdoms, right? Both parties are in on this election scammy stuff, right? That's what I see anyway. That's why you can't get a real conversation about it. There's a few people who are not interested in it, but in general, it's a problem. So she was talking with Stacey Abrams, and they were talking about Kamala Harris, right? So this is what they said. They said anyone who thinks that Kamala Harris, right, that Americans who think that Kamala Harris is incompetent, right, it's either because of misogyny or racism, right? That's what she says. It's either misogyny or racism. That's the only reason why you could have a problem with Kamala Harris's performance, right? So Scott Adams says, I love the new narrative that Biden and Harris are doing a great job. And if you can't see it, that's because you are either stupid, right, or a bigot. So if you can't see how great they are, there's only two reasons, according to them. You're dumb, right? Or you're a bigot. Right? So the good news is this is the dead end, right? Imagine leading someone down a path where the only two possible answers, even Democrats are asked to say, oh, Kamala Harris is great, even though they know she's not, right? She's terrible at her job. Now, I get why there's some people that might like her, but anyone who's paying attention is like, this lady is not doing great, right? So when you think of that, leading people down this road to being either stupid or incompetent, and that's the only way you can make sense of the world, right? Stacey Abrams said it's you're racist or you're a misogynist, right? It's not really that. It's you're stupid or you're incompetent. So, or, you know, the bigot thing too is there. So the contrast with that, right? Well, first of all, you can just see how poorly these people have been treated by their media and their information sources, which is why in my book, The Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management, especially with these credentialists, the best thing you can do is to have pity, right? Pity is ultimately the better way to manage this stuff. Arguing with people who have brain damage around points they hold dear, like factual things they've hallucinated that they think are real, right? That will never get you anywhere. You're not going to be able to erase someone's hallucination with arguments and facts, right? You can't say, oh, that thing you hallucinated, that imaginary pink elephant is not pink, right? It's actually gray. You can't do that. If someone sees a pink elephant in their mind and they've hallucinated a pink elephant, there is no way that your words are going to convince them there is no pink elephant. They have to see for themselves that there is no pink elephant, right? That's probably the only way, because hallucinations are a bit tricky when it comes to convincing people they are hallucinating. No one believes they hallucinate, right? That's like magic. But here we are in a position where these folks are being led down these roads to hallucinate time and time again, and they got to see these things. Now, what they don't see is also important, right? So the vigilant fox, the hallucinations can be regularly block and obscure what also is happening, because there's only so many words that can, there's a volume of words that can go in your head, or images that you can see with your eyes, or things you can hear in a day, right? There's only so much. There's a finite amount of time, a finite amount of information that you can consume, right? So if you're spending all your time consuming, oh, racist Trump and all these things, then this is what you wouldn't see, right? So Vigilant Fox does this every week. He says, these are the 10 media blackout stories that you didn't see this week, right? So first one, Matthew Perry is not the only only actor to die unexpectedly this year. I mean, that happens all the time, so I'm not that worried about that. Here's another one. Historian unveils the real story behind the Hamas terror attack on Israel. I'm not that concerned about that one either. I don't, by the way, everything in Israel and the Middle East now, I've decided I don't care about the history. I'm not even going to pay attention to the history anymore. That's it. I'm done with the history. I don't care. It doesn't persuade me. It's not an argument. I don't care about any of that stuff. None of it, right? I'm done with the history part of what happened there. So next, Elon Musk reveals to Joe Rogan that ventilators, not COVID, destroyed people's lungs, right? We've known that for a while here on the Breakup, but now that it's actually getting to scale on the Joe Rogan show, and we're starting to see more people understand that. Number 7, Senator Rand Paul calls on the U.S. to audit the Fed. Have you heard about that? Right. We've been talking about it here, of course. Dr. Peter McCullough reveals more bad news about the COVID shots. Number 5, Border Patrol agents caught illegal immigrants carrying explosives. Did you hear about that? No. Number 4, nearly 1 in 3 COVID vaccine recipients suffered neurological side effects. Now, I don't believe any data on COVID, by the way, right? But I'll at least acknowledge when data is produced, right? Sometimes it's relevant. Oncologist who has diagnosed 20,000 cancer patients says he's never seen cancers this deadly before. Number 2, judge overturns Democrat primary election, calling evidence of fraud shocking, right? That's the one we saw in Connecticut. Finally, number 1, ivermectin, the drug once labeled as horse dewormer, is not only effective against COVID, but flu and RSV too. And it has profound anti-cancer properties. Totally anecdotal, not scientific evidence, but my dad had cancer this year. I put him on ivermectin and fenbenzanol, and he is cancer-free. But I don't know shit. Like, I just did it because I said, you're not even going to get into the doctor. Forget about going to the doctor, right? We got socialized healthcare in Canada. There are no old people going to get cancer treatment, right? They'll hook you up to the radiation and the chemo and all that. They'll do that, right? But that's it, right? So there you go. Those are the things you didn't hear. But back to the actual principle here of the media doing its job or not doing its job, the road down which they're leading you. Just look at the contrast, right? So that's fake news at its finest, right? Here's something that Balaji brought up. Let me see if I actually even got the fucking files. Yes, I did. Okay, good. So here's Balaji. Balaji wrote a whole big piece, right, on his Substack. He says, Congress blew him kisses. Journalists gave him applause. Regulators promised to take no action. So it was only crypto Twitter that uncovered his deception. Read the actual story of what happened with Sam Bankman-Fried before it gets memory hold. So he goes through the whole history here, right? Ever seen those superhero movies where Batman hunts down the villain and leaves him hogtied in cables for the police to mop up? That's what happened with Sam Bankman-Fried. The internet hunted down the fraud, collected indisputable evidence, and delivered him gift wrap to the government. Then everyone from Elon to India yelled online for a full month till the state finally grudgingly picked him up. Now that he's been convicted, we've been treated to a bizarre rewriting of history in which obviously the system worked because it was shamed by Twitter into pursuing an obvious crook. And yes, it was Twitter that drove the government to act. How do we know? Because the entire case was broken on crypto Twitter from beginning to end. So they get into Ian Allison, friend of mine, Eric Voorhees, who I've known. That Eric Voorhees interview with SBF, the debate they had, right? Excellent. And indeed, this is what I saw. I saw people in the summer of 2022 motivated to get rid of this guy. And because we all knew what was happening, we saw the lobbying efforts, we saw the language coming out of his mouth. I heard him talk about Bitcoin and I was shocked, right? Just shocked about what a fraud he was. The minute he said in the spring of 2022 that Bitcoin wasn't, boring tech, so old, blah, 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 never work as a payments network, I knew that I had confirmation before because of the election stuff and because of what I was doing at Kraken. Remember, I'm one of the first people to have ever been in contact with SBF in 2018. I understood the political scene that was happening in 2020 with Arthur Hayes getting arrested. I didn't know Bill Barr's CIA implications until I learned more about it in the crazy shit he said about Trump since, right? That all seemed like Jen Psaki could have written it. And then Mike Benz showed me the history of Bill Barr and what he's actually up to. And now I sort of understand what happened to Arthur a lot better. So when this happened to Arthur and SBF started eating Arthur's lunch, which is exactly what happened, right? So when FTX started to eat the BitMEX lunch and started to grow, when I was at Kraken, I was paying close attention to his products. I knew, if you didn't see, there was an exchange on Twitter just a few weeks ago between Jesse Powell, the CEO and founder of Kraken, and Elon Musk, where Jesse said, everyone gave us shit in 2020, 2021. We don't move fast. We're slow. We're an old exchange. Why aren't we cool like FTX and all that? Well, I was the guy on the other end telling Jesse my job was to reverse engineer the products and find out how they were getting to market so quickly. And I told him it's not real. There's no way any of this is real. I believe they're doing everything off of Excel spreadsheets because there's no product here. I can't imagine how they could have done this in the time that they said they'd done it. Now, of course, we were probably the only exchange out there that didn't fall into this trap of, we got to copy everything they're doing. And we got called all kinds of names, right? Oh, you guys are slow. You're da-da-da. Now, Jesse said he sort of took issue with that and wrote about it on Twitter, and Elon came into the replies and said, yeah, there was a lot of that going around and unbelievable and da-da-da-da, right? You can get into the details here. He goes through Ian Allison, Voorhees, David Z. Morris, all these people. He does a contrast where everyone knew that he was a fraud, but the NYT deal book, right? No, he's still, he's going to make a comeback, they were saying. So all of this stuff was going on. He says, New York Times, Congress, Bloomberg, Axios, all these establishment organs failed where CoinDesk, Bankless, and Crypto Twitter succeeded, right? So he goes through all of these instances. Now, again, which avenue do you think is going to put you in a better position in life, right? And this is becoming more and more obvious. It's becoming more and more obvious that one road is just going to lead to mental illness, victim ideology and complaining, and ultimately poverty and mental illness, right? The other one is giving you tools to understand what's going on, to understand how the system is being manipulated. The news is entirely there to create hallucinations in your mind that aren't real, right? So this hallucinatory effect, I think anyway, has created that exact situation, right? Now, the contrast we have with the media dealing with SBF and crypto Twitter dealing, when I say crypto Twitter, I mean independent journalists and things like that, people who are not in any of these big machines. Now, remember, my role in all of this was I wrote the actual air gap document between CoinDesk management and editorial. That was my last job at CoinDesk, was creating a legal way for the company CoinDesk that has financial obligations and effectively bosses because they have an owner, and the media wing, which were never to interact. And it didn't interact when I was there. I was the only sort of liaison. I sat with the business people, but I was always welcome in the newsroom and I could chat with them. And I was doing a lot of the programming, and I would never listen to the business people because my mandate was to listen to the news people to make sure that our show covered what was relevant. We weren't a pay-to-play show, and that meant I didn't have to listen to the business side. when it came to choosing what stories we covered and who was on stage and with whom and blah, 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 blah. So my job, because I was already the one person who interacted in the company between the business side and the editorial side, I was sort of neither nor in that company. And so my job, they gave me that job, was to create this document because both groups found me credible and I had a legal background and I could do it, right? I knew what to do in order to make this credible in all the parties. And so I did it. And proof that it works is all the awards that CoinDesk has won are mostly because they did reporting that killed their parent company. And it did, right? Now, I didn't mean to kill the parent company. It just meant I did the job correctly. Now, I'm not trying to brag about myself, right? It's not the point. Just saying that I had some role in this story and indeed helped keep independent media independent and not caught into the fake money vortex that could have trapped it and got it caught up. But that fake money vortex is running out, right? So look at Washington Post. So this is news today. Washington Post, right? All these stories. And this is why you got to be excited, right? Things like this are actually happening. Washington Post is going to cut 10% of their staff. That's brand new news today, right? So 10% of the Washington Post gone, right? Let me see if I got that story here. Oh yeah, I know. I'm looking in the wrong fucking file. These ones were out of order. So there you go. I don't know if I got the Washington Post story here. Anyway, there is a Washington Post story out there. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. 10%, they're going to fire. They got their new CEO. Remember, I've been talking about that for a while. And I sort of predict now that I think Bezos is going to start being a little more tactical in how he participates. We'll see, but I sort of think this is a new CEO at Washington Post. 10% of the staff is being less. That's 10% less brainwashing, as far as I can tell. Right? There's nothing beneficial the Washington Post gives us. So 10% less manpower at the Washington Post is just 10% benefit to Bitcoin. That's it, right? Now, again, go down this long road about journalism and its integrity and how much we can trust it and government's role in colluding with journalism, right? It's not that simple. We used to think they were check and balance. We don't think that way anymore. We see that they fit hand in glove. Look at this story, right? Look at this story. Now, I don't know what any of this means. I don't know the details. I don't know any of these things, okay? But it's a story that happened. It's a real story to a woman named Cheryl Atkinson. She says she's a nonpartisan investigative journalist. She's won some Emmys, some Edward B. Murrow Awards. So I guess she's a big journalist. She's got 500,000 followers. So she's definitely like a big name. She says, I follow the facts, not the crowd, right? So that's all of her slogans. I don't see a clear sign of partisanship within her follower account. It looks like normal people. Or at least, you can usually tell, right? You can go into someone's account. You can see if it's all MAGA people. You can see if it's all Democrat people. She looks like someone who's sort of in the middle. I didn't go too deep into her. But here's what she says, right? Now imagine this. She says, I wish I were making this up. In my ongoing lawsuit over government spying on my computers. So she was spied on by the government, all right? As a journalist, I submitted this document to the court. It proved that one agent who admitted spying on me and many others had indeed worked as an informant for U.S. Attorney Rod Rosenstein, as he'd claimed. Rod Rosenstein, if you don't remember, is the fellow who tried to work with Trump, but he was the one doing all the FISA warrants to begin with. Right? So he goes back to Russiagate, right? Russia collusion. So here she says, about a week later, all right, she says about a week later, the informant was dead. Okay. Which of course means he can't provide more details of the operation. And the historic clerk's default I received against him in my lawsuit, the first known such decision in a case of government spying on a journalist, pretty much will go nowhere. All right. So that won't go anywhere. Now imagine, I say that because you're going down again this dead end road, right? The mainstream media will never cover this story. They're not going to say, oh yeah, sure. You mean the informant who was going to lead to a case where we saw government collusion with the media and spying on journalists, and They're not going to cover it, right? So again, you're going to be left, if you stay with these sources, if you even put any of it in your brain, it's all lies, right? The line I've been using for over 2 years to describe the Allies in World War III is the all lies. They're the all lies. Right? The allied team, the allies that joined together to win World War II, are going to be known as the all lies in World War III, because the whole thing is built on lies. How many lies can you stack on top of the other, and to see how far you can go, right? So we're not going to get anything on that. But again, understanding how the all lies function is what has changed. Understanding how the machine operates has become a lot clearer to everyone, right? This was stuff that even in the summer, when I was saying the gears are becoming more clear about how the machine works, it was still somewhat speculative, right? Not everyone could share a very clear view about what was going on. But we're starting to get it more. We're starting to get it more. Mike Benz has been one of the best people for this, right? And so if you think about this collusion again between all these folks and what's going on, right? Now we got Yoel Roth, right, who's still crying. Yoel Roth. I got him wrong, by the way, right? I said a year ago when X was first taken over, I said Yoel Roth, probably just a moron, probably in over his head, right? I don't know. He was pretty close with Jack Dorsey. I still believe Jack Dorsey is ignorant about any of this stuff, as most CEOs are in every case. I don't know how much of it, even if he was aware, he would have opposed. That's another story, right? That's a totally different story. I think he would have, right? He seems like he's on and wants a better world, and certainly doesn't want everything to be run by the Illuminati who are suing Bitcoin Magazine. I don't think he wants that. So this whole thing about what Mike Benz is doing, especially on Yoel Roth, has been helpful in understanding not Yoel Roth necessarily, but how universities and academia play into this game, right? So here's his breakdown. He says, panic responsibly. Yoel Roth censorship panel laments loss of control over 2024 election. Twitter's former head of trust and safety, Yoel Roth, has had several high-profile speaking engagements in the past weeks, alongside other prominent censorship industry insiders. Roth, whose team played a key role in speech control for the 2020 U.S. presidential election cycle, recently spoke at UCLA's School of Law, where he painted a somber picture of the diminished power of censorship professionals ahead of 2024, right? So he's going on and saying it's not just that Elon fired everyone. Like, sure, he did that, but why did he do it? He did it because we took our foot off the gas, is what he's saying, right? So the gas was to censor people from having opposing points of view, right? The bottom line of Roth's diagnosis: pressure against censorship institutions is succeeding on all fronts, right? There's a loss of consensus, right? A loss of consensus. So with that loss of consensus, right? You're getting a situation where the ability for the misinformation gears to turn are becoming limited. And he goes on, he says, government money is what sustains this industry. The Harvard Misinfo Review report begins its too big to fail argument by citing a broad range of funding bodies and governments that have devoted significant financial resources to academic departments involved in censorship studies. Academia as the government's censorship mercenary arm, right? And that's what we've seen, right? We've seen academia and these folks get involved in this stuff and carry water for the government, the media, whoever they need in order to get these results. And now that we see this situation in the Middle East, right? The Middle East and everything that's happening with Hamas and Israel is another one of these instances where the old alignment that was being preserved through this relationship of the universities and the censorship industrial complex is actually finally breaking apart. It's actually finally breaking apart. The reason is you're getting this combination that I think a lot of people have perceived for a long time, which is the unholy alliance, as Ariel Davidson puts it, political L. The unholy alliance between the far left and the Arab diaspora means Hamas finds support in major Western cities. That's all we're watching here, right? And that's what I see. I see the university kids using TikTok, right? And now finally, you're having the TikTok conversations we always needed to have. It's leaving the realm of data security. We're talking about TikTok now in terms of brainwashing, in terms of manipulating people. People are understanding that the Hamas content that's on the Israel-Palestine issue is taking over like a parasitic virus in people's minds. And it's causing a lot of the Jewish folks who are giving so much money to the colleges to say, what the hell is going on here? Now, they shouldn't be surprised. This has been going on for a while. And look, and also, by the way, I'll say it again. I am a lover of Israel. All right. A lover of Israel. Like, I love Israel. It's one of the most amazing places ever. Right. Just like, and I'm going to say it for this reason. I love Donald Trump, right? Love Donald Trump. But what I used to say about Trump that I didn't like about what the media was doing was the way the media attacked Trump forced me to always defend Trump. I don't want to be in that position. I have a lot to complain about Trump on policy issues and this and that. I would like to be critical of Trump. I would like to, right? I don't want to be in a position where I have to defend Trump because that's dangerous. What's dangerous for democracy is having a bunch of people complaining about Trump and it's all unfair and stupid and witch hunty. And then people who would actually like to criticize Trump on points of order, points of policy, points of issues, whatever. We can't, because you got to defend the guy because he's getting unfairly attacked. I'm a little the same on Israel. Or not a little, I'm a lot the same on Israel, right? Why are we giving them money? Can't they pay their own bills? What's going on here? Is Israel poor? Are they a poor country? I don't know. I don't think so. It didn't look poor when I was there. So I don't want to have to defend Israel blindly. But that's the position we're in now, right? Because of the amount of unfair attacking and things like that. So it's unhealthy to be forced into these positions. So that's why I don't talk about it much here. It's kind of silly to talk about all the time because it's just propaganda pushing people to fight more and more around these issues. You're not going to solve them, right? It's not going to get solved today. So that's what's going on. So the media pushing people down these routes for so long, it became untenable now, right? And you're seeing the left break apart on Hamas, on everything going on in Israel, and it's not going to stop. There's going to be more and more issues that come up, that spring up, that force recalibrations. And now that this box has been shaken, everything can change quickly, right? You're seeing people leave media so quickly. You're having the right conversations about TikTok finally, right? What about these Gen X people? So this is all these videos Wall Street Silver is starting to share. Young girls, sometimes guys, complaining about how hard it is. They don't want to work, right? And then you get all these people, oh, Gen Z doesn't want to work, right? Oh, blah, blah, blah. They don't want to work. Every generation that I've ever seen in popular culture where we had enough media being generated by generations commenting on other generations has shown us that every generation thinks the newest one is stupid, lazy. That's been going on forever, right? That we have records of those types of conversations happening for 100 years now. So it's nothing new, right? But if you watch some of these videos about these people saying, I don't want to work anymore, it's awful, it's not because they don't actually want to work. They all come out and say it, right? When they say, "Oh, I don't have enough time," and da 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 da. Well, part of it, and I think it's starting to become clear, has to do with inflation and the corruption of the money itself. People are starting to understand that more and more. So when I hear these young people complaining, I don't put that filter. Oh, young kids today, they're so lazy. What are they doing, right? I put the filter of the money is so broken. They're doing the math and they're saying, "Why do I bother? This is dumb." It doesn't make sense. I don't get anything from it, right? If you had a basic job, even in the 90s, I was walking through a suburban neighborhood a little while ago, and I remembered growing up what it was like in the 90s in these neighborhoods. People who were just like cashiers at the grocery store could live in these beautiful bungalow houses that are $1 million now. Like, you were a cashier at the grocery store, and you could have and afford one of these houses. Now that was already income was already a degradation from what it had been a generation before. You had to have two people working cashier jobs to afford a house like that, but it was not like fancy jobs that led to families buying these bungalows, right? It was anybody. So that's gone, right? And now finally the money is starting to show up in people's opinions, lifestyles, and it's that dead end road we were talking about with the media, right? So you're finally able to have these conversations. Now, I bring up all of this for two reasons. All right, for two reasons. All this evil was around we said, well, I've been saying all summer, well, less of Disney was good, right? We had not a lot of Hollywood. That was good. The writer's strike, good. Less interference, less brainwashing. Felt like the air freshened up a bit. But now, the writers are back. The journalists aren't on summer vacation. That was like a great source of fake news. If you remember over the summer, it's always the interns. So they just produce a ton of fake news. But now that everything's back to sort of normal, the machine is starting to work again, but it's not clicking at the same RPMs that it used to, right? It's seeming a lot weaker. Now, a few things have happened, right? Just this weekend, and this is, I think, some of the best news we're ever going to get. Twitter has now launched its Grok AI. If you don't know what Grok means, it's a slang word, obviously, for understanding. If you grok something, that means you understand it, right? So amazingly, Elon's new AI is coming online called Grok. Now, what I love about it is, first of all, it's got a name, right? So you can say things like Grok. You can call it Grok, it can be used as a verb. It can be used as a name. So that's really great. Like, you can't say, oh, Chat GPT told me, you could say, well, Grok told me, right? So it's more friendly, right? Which is what I predicted would be the case. I predicted years ago that AI would be our Bitcoin wallet and our best friend, and it would help solve loneliness. And it would start by shielding us from fake news. It would start by shielding us from the Jen Psaki's, the people who would lead us down the wrong road that would make us either stupid or a bigot, right? Remember what she said, right? Why don't people understand that Joe Biden is great, right? Only stupid people or bigots wouldn't understand why they're great, right? What a great administration. So obviously that's a dead-end road. Most reasonable people know that's stupid. The vast majority of Democrats recognize the failings of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. Now, the ones who aren't brainwashed, there's still millions of these people who are brainwashed, who are like, yeah, they're great, right? So that's happening. But having this situation where we've now got, I think, a credible AI coming up. And if you see something that it did too that's amazing, is that it modeled its conversation style, not trying to understand the vast library of human humor. It didn't do that. It took one writer, Douglas Adams, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and learned that one writer's comedic style and applied that one writer's comedic style to its own sense of humor. So far, I haven't used X Grok yet, but from what I've seen from people sharing the stuff, it actually looks funny. Like it managed to get a sense of humor. It seems conversational. Now, up until now, it's happened to me many times where I would be like late for a meeting and I'd say, "Oh, sorry, I was late." I was deep in conversation with this AI and Chat GPT usually, and sorry, like I was arguing and trying to get it to do something and trying to trick it really into doing something, and I got lost in conversation. Having the AI have a name like Grok makes what I just said more reasonable or intuitive, right? Grok was, not understanding something, or Grok said something funny. Sorry, I was late. I was deep in conversation. But giving them a name personalizes it more than we're used to. So again, and I think an appropriate amount. So imagine, right, now that all the stuff it's done in the past year, imagine from now on, instead of community notes alone, you would just have Grok spotting fake news for you and protecting you like an iron dome for your brain to keep out the fake news from penetrating. We're days away from this. We're days away from having the most important friend we've ever had to help save us from fake news. Now, the thing about it all is that it can only help you not see the hallucinations or help you see through the hallucinations, right, that we were talking about. It doesn't really construct a path forward for you, right? So there's at the one moment, the AI can help you not see the dead end or avoid the dead end roads that the MSNBC people would lead you down, right? So that's a benefit. But what's the other road, right? Where else do you go? Now that you know not to go down that road, you got to go somewhere, right? So how do you use AI to figure out where to go, right? Well, we think of it as the yellow brick road in Wizard of Oz, right? What's the path you take to get to where you want to be? So now that people are going to say, well, this university, like they're liars, the media liars, government liars, right? Going down the path of the all lies, following the all lies is going to become more and more obvious to people that you're following the path of liars, right? Vivek even says it here, right? So this is what Vivek says. He goes, the government needs to stop lying to us about weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, the 2008 bailouts, Trump-Russia collusion hoax, the origin of COVID-19, who pressured companies to censor debate on vaccines and lockdowns, Hunter Biden's laptop, the Nashville transgender school shooters manifesto, how U.S. tax dollars are being spent in Ukraine. We can handle the truth, he says. We can handle the truth. This is what Kennedy's been saying, right? If Americans have an appetite for the truth, I will be the president of the United States. And I think that's true, right? So you get all of these stories sort of coming together now. And with Grok there, we have a brand new tool that I think can start showing us the yellow brick road towards a much better future. So it's not just about defending you from going down the wrong road. It's about helping you get on the right road. And that's why I want to bring up Mr. Beast. And then you see what Mr. Beast did again this week. So last week already, he made some of the coolest news you've ever seen. You know what he did for Halloween? Mr. Beast gave away straight iPhones. Like if you went to his house for Halloween, it was just iPhone. He had stacks of iPhones, right? That don't work and are shit and don't even get me my pictures. Did I get my pictures yet? No, not even yet. They're still not there. Stupid junk. But anyway, if anyone's who was there just trick-or-treating as a kid and isn't producing the Breakup, needing all of these stupid tools just to do a live stream, they don't have to worry. They got what they wanted. When he ran out of iPhones, he gave a kid a stack of cash, $10,000, right? Just a stack of cash. Yeah, the kid's like, yeah, great. So that was last week, right? That was last week. That was Mr. Beast last week. This week, he went to Africa and drilled 100 drinking wells. He drilled 100 drinking wells. So prediction, you're going to hear fake news about Mr. Beast all week. Remember the last time he cured people's blindness and they called him every name in the book? They got angry, right? So I don't see why anyone would get angry about drilling water wells in Africa, but they will. They're going to get angry at him. So look out. I'm predicting now I will have a Mr. Beast fake news Moscow Times story this week, something to do with water in Africa, right? I'm sure someone's going to take, actually, right, it's better to let people die of thirst because at least you're not a colonizer. So he's going to be a colonizer or something this week, right? He's white. He shouldn't be giving them water. This is going to be the dumbest thing. But Fernando Nikolic comes out and says, how many water things has the UN drilled in 78 years? The answer is 0. So he's done 100, right? In so far in 2023, 100 drinking water wells, right? Now, this is why I bring it up. Imagine a world, right? Mr. Beast. We're talking about communication lines. We're talking about persuasion. We're talking about Gen Z going down the wrong road, right? And like I went to school and I did all the right things and I can't go out for dinner or pay my rent. I got to choose between friends and paying my rent. And I have a good job, right? That's people who say that, right? So now imagine Mr. Beast comes around and starts grokking money, starts grokking inflation, starts grokking these things, right? And when I say grokking, I mean I use the word grokking here like you'd use the word Google. It's a verb now, right? It's a verb and a noun. That's an amazing thing, by the way. And just so you know how amazing I think it is, CoinDesk, right? When we talked about Balaji and Balaji saying, CoinDesk and independent journalists and all these people actually did the work on SBF, which is 100% true, right? 100% true. Well, do you know how we made the business of CoinDesk? It's very simple. We created the Bitcoin price reference, the BPI it was called. It was the first ever global reference for the price of Bitcoin. And we knew it would work because you could use it in a sentence, right? According to CoinDesk, Bitcoin price is XYZ, right? And that was the whole secret. That was the actual secret sauce that made CoinDesk. Everyone in the world had to cite CoinDesk's price. And that led to an SEO explosion when that stuff was still important. So we got this huge boost because, the name CoinDesk would appear in Wall Street Journal and the fake news New York Times and the fake news Washington Post. Anyone in the fake news who wanted to talk about Bitcoin had to put our name into it, right? Which led us to become, really popular and much bigger than people even. We made the perception of the company bigger than we actually were, right? We knew we were a startup, but we were getting this amplification that was amazing, right? And so because it could be used simply in a sentence, to me, is the reason why we were successful. I knew this because when I developed the tool market interest, which was a way to counter market cap, right? Where I was literally just looking at the interest people would have in a network. And I used Bitcoin as the reference for all other shitcoins, right? You measured the interest in them by what was happening in Bitcoin. So what are miners' interest, right? What's the hash rate? What's the developer interest? How many people are submitting? What's the exchange interest? What's the social interest? Who's interested in this thing, right? Who's trading it? Who's doing what? So I had about 40, 50 data points, and the reference was Bitcoin. So you could understand the interest in whatever shitcoin by measuring it against Bitcoin. And you'd often get like the best were like 0.08, I mean. 8% of Bitcoin was like Ethereum, of the interest in Ethereum. It was like taking the Bitcoin dominance index and putting it through every data point a blockchain can produce, and then getting a sense of it in combination. Now the weights and all that were totally made up. I was just like, well, hash rate's more important than this, so I'll give it a bigger weight, right? But that part was not scientific. Let's say it was consistent, but not scientific. And was definitely ready to be varied. But here's the thing, right? Go back to just being simple to be used in a sentence. Grok, understand, right? Imagine if just someone with very little education, but probably one of the most impressive skill sets in media distribution in the world, which is Mr. Beast, right? An insanely talented person who understands audience behavior, consumption habits, all of these things. If this person starts grokking simple subjects like money, right? Now, he doesn't have to understand Bitcoin immediately, right? We all know the Bitcoin price, the BigMac price index, right? So the BigMac price index, of course, for people who don't know, is something that The Economist used for many years to measure purchasing power. Now, as someone who lived in Asia, when this was really popular in the early 2000s, it was amazing because it was true, right? I could see how much a Big Mac cost, and I would laugh, right? I remember when I first moved to Korea, the Big Mac trio, right? So and you could get a tomato on the Big Mac there. It was great. Yeah. So Big Mac trio with a tomato, fries, and the drink was $4.50. And in America, already then it was about $6. So already I was like, wow, so cheap, right? Crazy. And you could do this all around the world. I think the cheapest Big Macs at the time were in Hong Kong. I think they were like $3.50 or something for a Big Mac in Hong Kong back then. It was incredible, right? So the Big Mac price index. Now, someone has brought this up, and Lynn Alden was talking about it this morning. That's why I'm bringing it up. So Lynn Alden was bringing it up this morning. So it's an employee, and I've got one of these cards before. If you've ever met a Big Mac franchise owner, their business cards are redeemable Big Mac tokens, right? So that's another way to get it. So here's what he said. I work at McDonald's, and we have these little cards that we give to customers when they fuck up their order that lets them redeem the card for a free Big Mac, right? So I've never gotten one of those, but as I said, I've gotten business cards from from McDonald's franchise owners, and they're free Big Macs, right? Just recently, we received a box of these special coins. They are going to serve the same purpose. If you have one of these coins, you can exchange it for a Big Mac. It's for the 50th anniversary of the Big Mac. Now, I'm far from an economics expert, but you are a McDonald's employee. You are. You don't even realize it, but you are. I'm far from an economics expert, so this may just be a stupid question. But since our money has no value anymore, since it was taken off the gold standard, whereas these coins come from McDonald's, are backed up by Big Macs, does that make them a more stable currency than our own money? So average people are now asking this question. This guy put this on some, Reddit or some dumb shit. What are they going to do when they start grokking this stuff, right? What's going to happen then, right? He'll find out very quickly, or she, that indeed the Big Mac has been used to measure inflation for a long time. It is a better purchasing power tool than the US dollar and has been used specifically for that purpose for 30 years now. And so the Big Mac price index actually does suggest the type of financial literacy you need to understand why Bitcoin is important, right? So now I don't think Mr. Beast has to go through Big Macs to understand this, but just realize that the financial literacy required to get Bitcoin is actually not that complicated. It's not that complicated. The understanding, the need to separate money and state for these reasons here are very easy to understand. So imagine already looking at the capacity of an individual like Mr. Beast to do what the government can't do, build water wells, right? You're already looking at individual capacity beating state capacity. Again, go back to what I was saying at the beginning with the media, right? Me and CoinDesk and a few journalists were enough to destroy SBF and do something the entire collection of mainstream media couldn't achieve. They couldn't achieve it. As Balaji broke down, they could not achieve it, right? So suddenly we've got this incredible force here to help us. We have, I think, fake news protection. And we've got the ability, I think, we've got the ability to take the newfound literacy, this ability to have AI, and if you merge it all together, you're going to get people who are operating at an entirely different level of persuasion, like Mr. Beast, that are going to come to Bitcoin. If Mr. Beast and, for example, Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump, if those two people get to the point that RFK is at today, we have hyperbitcoinization now, not 50 years from now, nothing like that. No, today. It's going to happen now. And now, again, it's not, maybe not the way the plebs hoped, right? It's not that, oh, we all are hodling Bitcoin and it's the masses have overcome. I don't think that's what it's going to be, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I think the end of us being the story that plebs like us were first, that chapter is going to end, right? It'll end by 2028, I think. And by 2028, it's the energy companies and we're getting into the big Bitcoin. But nevertheless, we're starting to calibrate, what the economy will be measured in, right? The reference rate for the economy. So we've got all these people now. We're having the right conversations finally about TikTok. Imagine we're finally having brainwashing conversations because a lot of the Jewish people are realizing what's happening. They're shouldn't be surprised, but are surprised about what's going on in left-wing politics. The political divide is falling apart. The ability for the media, just as Yoel Roth said, to keep everyone in that container is gone. People are starting to wake up to work, taxes, Big Macs. If they understand the relationship between work and Big Macs and government involvement, which are all pretty accessible subjects, you're going to get hyperbitcoinization. So universities falling apart, the censorship industrial complex falling apart, all of it going, right? All of it going. All right, let me see. New Bitcoin culture phase. I grok you. Yeah. It's coming, guys. It's coming. Mr. Beast criticized for building 100 wells in Africa. No, he's going to get in trouble. Alas. Chain of custody for Nolan's workflow battles against fiat entropy. Old world tech indeed. Yeah. Sorry, I got mad, guys. Sorry, I got mad. Angry optimist. We are happy optimists. The album. So everything is charged. All right. Sometimes it can say we don't want to do it because it's not saving battery power, which I've turned off 1,000 times. The newest thing on Apple that's driving me fucking nuts is you can't shut off hotspot anymore. You can't shut it off. So my kids have iPads, right? And they're on my iCloud account or whatever. And now when we drive in Canada, and I have limited data in Canada, this shithole won't, dump. You can't buy do you know you can't buy unlimited data in Canada? There's no such product. You can't buy a cell phone and say I want unlimited data. My phone's from America, right? So I just pay extra to be on the Canadian network. But still, I pay for like the whole world to just be local for me with my phone with the American plan. And it's still cheaper than Canada domestic. And I have unlimited in America. And the rest of the world is Canada. I don't. So anyway, real shithole. But now I can't shut off my kids from leeching my internet. I download shit for them in the car, but I can't shut them off in the car from leeching. I have to put them on airplane. You know how many times I've sat in my car saying, why is that green light on again? I shut it off. And then I had to look it up and they took it away this year. It's just gone, right? You think Steve Jobs, I want to grok what Steve Jobs would do if he met and looked at what was happening at Apple these days. I want to know. Grok, tell me what would happen. Imagine it. Good to know that a heart attack can protect you from the science at it again. Yeah. Wake up with the Breakup Breakfast Club chat, Joe. Everybody follow me. Sure, Noah. We don't know who you are, but why not? Plastic is racist. Racist. Who isn't terrorist? Yeah, I mean, all the time, huh? All the time. Fiat News shell shock. Yeah. Constipated election reform. Yeah. Brian. Kamala Harris is the greatest female vice president. I didn't see that part. She is. You're right. Yeah, I actually call it pity the fool technique in my book, Bitcoiner's Guide to NPC Management. Perhaps, what's the name change? Some we're talking about calling it orange pilling. I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll see. Make meritocracy great again. Very fun. Trust the science. Oh yeah. So let's make meritocracy great again, and then we've got a that's totally racist, P-Man. Good day, mates. So Bitcoin Graffiti, I will let you know that I tried my best to get Mr. Beast to be walking on the yellow brick road today with the set, but the AI is too stupid. It wouldn't figure it out. But it was for you. I was thinking you're gonna like this one. If I can get Mr. Beast on a yellow brick road with the crew, it would have been great, but it didn't work out. The best I could do was some BigMacs. Couldn't wake up early and be a racist. Racist. Why can't you be more racist? Be racist, friends. Yeah, and my mom. My mom had the cancer in hilarious story. So she gets cancer in the COVID thing, right, in 2021. And now she wants to spend get this. This is how dumb boomers can be. I love my parents, but they're, like not with it, right? So it's 2021. You can't even get it in the doctor because Canada is losing it over COVID, right? And I'm like, Mom, I'm going to Barbados for the whole winter. Like, I'm not staying here. I can rent you the neighbor's house, right? And we'll just figure out the cancer stuff down there because you're not getting served in Canada. That's not going to happen, right? So she comes down. She gets the sun, the ivermectin, the stuff. She gets back to Canada, right? And the doctor's all mad at her. She's like fucking yelling at her. You got to come, right? You got to come, right? And my mom's nervous about it because she's not used to not listening to doctors, right? And I'm like, Mom, they're going to kill you. Like, just ignore them. Like, I'm not your doctor, maybe cancer, but I said, you're not getting it anyway. They're not letting you in the door, right? So she comes back after our summer. She spends 3 months there. Comes back. The doctor right away looks at her because her hair is all perfect, thick, right? She's been walking every day, living in the sun. And the doctor's like a little upset that she looks so good because she ignored her on the beach all year, right? You're going to die. Like, oh. She comes back super healthy, right? And the doctor is losing it. So not happy. Then my dad gets cancer that summer. And same thing, but listen to how stupid my parents are. Listen to how dumb they are. They go through all of this, right? Both of them get a clean bill of health. Even the doctor with my dad is not. He'll tell the dog, yeah, I've been taking ivermectin, fenbenzynol, the whole. So it's ivermectin, fenbenzynol, and vitamin E, right? That's the combination. So that's what I had him on, and we worked with that. So the thing shrunk so much with my dad that they were like, well, whatever you did must have worked, right? So they didn't get mad at him about it or anything. But guess what? They go in this weekend and the doctors just jab them with the vaccine. Just jab them. Can you imagine? My mom was like, you're going to be so mad, right? She's like, well, we were at the doctor and they were like, you're never going to come back. You don't have an appointment, your age. And they talk them into it. And they just, with the needle in their hand, they talk them into it, right? So my mom was like, embarrassed or whatever this weekend. I was like, all right, don't worry about it. But what are you thinking? Like, I've delivered more results to you than any one of these doctors, and you're still like going to the doctor. Okay, well, there's only so much I can do. I think they'll be fine. But if they get anything again, it's going to be like pretty amazing, right? When I learned that Sam's mother helped Obama's campaign back in 2018 and 2008, I think you mean, I understood that the entire FTX thing was just a complete scam. I knew when he gave them money, but I didn't know his family connections. Now that we know Arabella Advisors and the Soros direct money, Arabella Advisors is Soros's direct fund, and the parents work for that, right? So that's I think what you need to know. It's the Arabella Advisors piece. Love your perspective on the Middle East. Nothing we can do. No, you can't. And remember, everything on the Middle East, like anyone who tells you, I'm against babies dying. Okay, well, that's the dumb point, because if you say nothing, babies die. If you're with Israel, babies die. If you're with Hamas, babies die. Okay, so there's no opinion where babies aren't dying. Unfortunately, it's not. I don't like talking about that, but that's the truth, right? There is no scenario where you get to take the high ground. That's why things are breaking apart on this file. That's the dead end of it, right? The whole brainwashing thing worked by getting people's moral outrage, the self-righteousness. I've been calling self-righteousness as the magic elixir for wokeism for 10 years now, right? That you feel better about yourself and you're better. Because I'd been in those fights for years. You can see right away how it breaks down, because when you deal with someone with cognitive dissonance, when they have it, they'll attack you personally once the arguments are out. So I've been getting called a Nazi regularly for 15 years now, something like that, since Obama came around, really, right? So it's been a while. And I mean, people straight up hiling, right? Like what? And like, a lover of Israel, a guy who's lived all around the world. I didn't date like a white girl for, I don't know, my whole singleness before I met my wife, like ever, right? And I never like not interested, right? That's not true, but it was a very, trust me, before I had a wife, I was very DEI. All right. Very DEI. Okay. Not trying to be a jerk or a brag or anything like that. Right. That was just what that was me. Right. So, and it doesn't prove anything. I don't think. I'm not trying to make a case for myself. I think we're all racist. Right. Everybody. There's no avoiding. We're pattern recognition machines. What are you supposed to do with a pattern? Right? It could be false, but what are you supposed to do? If your operating system is to recognize patterns, 1, 3, 5, 7, you can't stop yourself. There's no way to stop yourself, right? You can't stop yourself from saying what's next. We're set up that way. So probably for good reason. So there's no getting around it. So you can see patterns, and that's the end of it. So the truth is that people are now waking up to the dead end, because in this Israel thing, there is no self-righteousness. Just like everyone's a racist, well, in the Middle East, any opinion you have, you're for genocide. Any opinion you have. There is no getting around it. There isn't. You have, the no opinion is genocide, okay? The no opinion is genocide. So pick your genocide. Like, unfortunately, I wish there was an easy way out, right? It's the same with Bitcoin scaling or any of these impossible problems in the world. Now, The way out is enlightenment, awareness, all of those things, right? Which we're working towards if we grok it, right? Now, again, go back to what I even said about AI and Bitcoin. The major advantage we have with Bitcoin is that AI can recognize it as money easily. Remember what we talked about, or what I talked about at Bitcoin 2023, right? It was all about the difference between chemistry and life is, or sorry, within chemistry, right? There's living things and not living things, let's say, right? The difference between the chemical reactions happening between something not living and living, it's all chemistry, but we call it metabolism in a living thing, right? Metabolic rates, the process of chemistry happening within a living organism to sustain its life. And the cell wall in which all of the metabolic activity happens is what separates the envelope of life from just plain old chemistry. And that envelope of life, Drew Bonsall made the amazing insight that that's Bitcoin. Its reference, right? Understanding the inanimate and the alive for AI will be Bitcoin. Bitcoin is going to be its feedback mechanism so that it can understand itself, understand the world around it. It's why I always say it. The way water is to the metric system is its reference rates, right? That's the reference. The qualities and properties of water allowed us to establish a measuring system. That's what Bitcoin is. It's allowing us to put weights and measures into the system so that we can actually have feedback and the proper metabolic activity that will keep us all alive, right? So AI's actual pathway to being fully alive is Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin, and it's not far. When Grok starts telling us all about the BigMac index and about government corruption and puts up the iron dome around our brain from fake news so that we don't go down the fake road that Jen Psaki is trying to lead us down, it'll understand. There's no way around it now. There's no way around it, right? It's God's money. It's God's money, right? So we're here. Yeah, it's going to be a fun time. Nice to see you, Gold 106. Hope you're doing great. All right, Columbo was such a great show. Painful to watch today. Yeah. Anyone see The Simpsons last night? They created human FT's prediction for the future. I'd prefer to be ordained, ordinaled. The Mandibles. Yeah, we're trying to get the Mandibles again at the show this year. I still haven't read The Mandibles, though. I got to do it. Bitcoin changes your brain. Health to more optimal, realistic functionality. Yeah. Censorship professionals. There's a lot. Yeah. Censorship industrial complex. We love it. Yay, Scott. My kids called me into the room shouting, "Hey, Dad, Satoshi's on The Simpsons." Very cool. I didn't see that. I got to see it. I got to check that out. TikTok is 100% a psychological. Yeah. CoinDesk covered The Simpsons episode. Great. I'll go check that out. It's the fiat. Yeah, it is. Yeah. That's why I don't even give them, one of my favorite accounts out there is Seed Oil Disrespecter. It's actually helped me because it's what I don't do with seed oils? I'm not polite anymore, right? It's like someone offers me something and I'll be like, what's it? You're eating garbage. I don't eat. I'm not like, there was a long time where I don't care. Before COVID, I didn't care about that stuff as much. I knew about it. Like I'd read Van Valkenburg, everything he'd written on seed oils. I knew it sort of intellectually. I just didn't think it applied the way it did. And so I came up with when I saw Seed Oil Disrespecter, it actually helped me change the way I communicate seed oil stuff to people. It's mocking. It's pity. It's a bit of pity. But I do the same that bow-tied bull guys do with the US dollars. I don't call it US dollar anymore, even in casual conversation with normies. I call it US trash tokens. I only call it US trash tokens. Fuck, I had to put trash tokens. You got trash tokens, you got some trash tokens, you got some trash, you got some US trash tokens, right? And calling it a token is better, right? It is a token. It's like this guy talking about the BigMac tokens, right? it's a token, right? Tokenism. They want tokenism, they got it. Comes from Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land. Yeah. I've been using Find and it's turned me into a cypherpunk. I can only imagine Grok will be OP and unavoidable. Yeah, it's I can't. I think the humor is going to help, and that conversational piece. Remember, in my future that I wrote in Satoshi Winning Murders, every AI has its own personality and sort of human face, so that we can recognize them. They have like a unique, instead of a fingerprint, they have a human face which they can project. So they're, in my story, they're all called eyeballs, AI balls, and they've got a camera and a projector, so they can record everything and project their human likeness if they need to, and it comes out as a hologram. But Grok, I didn't know this. Heinlein's 1961 novel, Stranger in a Strange Land. It is a Martian word that means to understand something. I didn't know any of that. Thanks, Knox Hoddle. I didn't know this, guys. And Stranger in a Strange Land, where's that from again? That's I know they just did a terrible Star Wars episode on that. I'm trying to think who they got in trouble for copying Stranger in a Strange Land. Oh yeah, no. I know. It's there's that famous isn't a Next Generation episode named after that? Star Trek Next Generation? I don't remember. Anyway, someone was complaining about it. The government told me the people who want the terrorists. Greta, yeah, but Greta's now an anti-Semite. She's done. She's done. Greta's finished. No one even cares how she feels anymore. X phone with Grok and its native AI-based Pornhub. Very good. Oh yeah. So this is a funny story that I have. Cock block for parents to use. So I had a friend. I've mentioned him before. He's when I went to Hong Kong in 26 for some Bitcoin stuff. His wife and him. So I introduced them. They got married, and then she became the trade commissioner to Hong Kong. And we all met in law school. And then he became a stay-at-home dad. Yeah, right. Department of Defense furlough, they say. He doesn't tell me what he's doing. He's one of the smartest people I know. But and I just hung out with him a little while ago. But I know what he's doing. So I'm at his house in Hong Kong. They lived at the top of Old Peak Road. If you don't know anything about Hong Kong, let me tell you, this would be like living on 57th Boulevard in Manhattan. That's the one right on the south side of the park. Or it's the most expensive real estate on earth, maybe, up Old Peak Road. Maybe at one time it was. So it's a few towers right up to the top of the hill. So the tower at the top of the hill. So the OKX founder told me he grew up there. When I told him I stayed there, he goes, I grew up in that building, So just to give you a sense of who's up there. The pool of the building is above the tops of the skyscrapers of Hong Kong. So there's pictures of me in this pool where you can just see the tops of the skyscrapers as they come up to like the pool level, right? So all this to say, very smart guy. And this was in 2016. I hadn't seen him in 4 years or something. I hadn't even had a conversation with him about Bitcoin or any of this stuff. And right away, he knew what was going on. He still knows everything that's going on. He very on top of this stuff. Like I said, he's a furloughed Department of Defense stay-at-home dad in Hong Kong. Who introduced me to the two Michaels who got arrested, in the Canadians who got arrested in China. So he was friends with them. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. He told me, he made a joke. He goes, you know what I want to build? I want to build the cock blockchain, right? Just a distributed record of all the cock blockers in the world. Anyone who did that to you, they go immutable. Funny guy, very funny guy. So there you go. Grew up in Israel. The Economist we were the ones that made CD bigger than BM, which perplexed me back then. Makes sense now. You were the one that made CD bigger than BM, which perplexed me back then. Well, not a lot to do with it. We had a lot of fun back in the old days at CoinDesk. It was a good time. But I'm happy to, it was already by 2018, it was already getting a little harder for me because I was only wanting to do Bitcoin stuff, right? So, yeah, The Economist used to have the thing. It's nice to know The Economist once printed something interesting and useful. It's a comic book, isn't it bad? I still have like my old law school fiat brain set. That's like some of the people I was referencing earlier that are just down this crazy road. Not that friend I just mentioned about the cock blockchain, but other law school friends. They still like that. That's if I don't debate them because I don't debate people with mental illness. There's no point, right? But when they try to like score a point on me, it's like, oh, you don't even read The Economist. You don't even know, right? Like, oh, sorry. The simplest way I see to put it is that your dollar doesn't have a denominator. Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, that's what makes it a kleptocurrency. Kleptocurrency. Very good. Very good. I'm thinking graphene for my next phone. Yeah, I love the graphene. No, Daniel, you cannot turn your personal. Yeah, turn it off. Okay. There's the button to turn it off is still there, but let someone who's already like got the password or whatever to connect, right? Put them in the same room with you and get them to use the internet. It'll come back on. And it's a known thing. It's a design choice. It's not like a mistake. They want this. Don't ask me why, but the simple thing of shutting it off now, I know because your anger level goes high when things in a car are not responding to you, right? So it's like you don't have the time to fix it and whatever, right? Doctors get pissed when you don't die on schedule. They do. Yeah. Go back Medicare. Yeah. Oh, I mean, they're fine. My parents are fine. We don't have MAID in Vermont. You will soon. We got to get it. Not enough people, though. Everyone poops and dies. Sometimes the other way around. Break the brainwashing. Yeah, it's all wrestling. It's all wrestling. Inclusivity is our strength. Agreed. Medical industrial complex. Yeah, subscription model. Subscription cancer model. That panel is a must watch. Yeah, we're talking about the AI panel. Yeah. And dollars are part of the system. Well, they can't think for themselves, I guess is what it comes down to. It's a hierarchical system. It's taught like military stuff, right? So they're not really independent thinkers, unfortunately. The doctors I know are huge conspicuous consumers. And worse than being a conspicuous consumer, they're financially illiterate. There's some of the, US banks have a special way of handling doctors because they're so bad with money. Yeah, it's true. They're really bad with money. Yeah. All right, everyone. That's what I got. Jeremy, got all these ones here. Bitcoin was always there. Satoshi discovered it. Yeah, I believe that. Yeah. It is a fossil extracted from the ground. Thanks for sharing Drew Bunsal's thought distinguishing Bitcoin. Yeah. Was from the Book of Exodus. Stranger in a Strange Land. Oh, was it? Also in Iron Maiden songs. Mind your friend's OPSEC there. Yeah, sorry about that, Jeremy. I mean, I don't know. I didn't say his name, so, but I guess people could figure it out. I don't know. Maybe it's true. Maybe he is just a stay-at-home dad. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, he takes the kids around and all this. His nanny used to disrespect him all the time as if he was a stay-at-home dad. So maybe it's true. It could be. It could be. He just happens to be one of the smartest people I've ever met, like by far, right? And his job at the Department of Defense, I don't know. Like, what is he doing there? He's never told me, so we don't know. He says he does contract law. Maybe he did a PhD too on really basic legal stuff recently. So he's not fake. Anyway, he's a good guy. That's how I've known for a long time. Not just him, but I've met a lot of other people in life. Right? There's good and bad out there. All right, we went a bit long today. Thanks for coming, everyone. I appreciate it. Sorry I was late. Yeah, it's Nolan Turandruv. It's named after Jeremy. It's named after the. It's a modification of the. What's his name? The writer. Android's Dream of Electric Sheep. Philip K. Dick. So it's the Philip K. Dick title. Will AI dream of electric Bitcoin? Which I believe is they will, right? Their little dreams are going to be about Bitcoin. So AI will dream about a better future on a Bitcoin standard, and people will grok it because of that, right? So there you go. Things are looking great, guys. Hyperbitcoinization incoming. All right. Peace. See you tomorrow.